Brad, super excited about this conversation. Number one, you have an incredible story. And number two is you actually have an offer that can put money in the pockets of real estate agents and absolutely in the money in the pockets of investors. So can you give us a hint about what that is?
Well, just a brief hint, I sell dirt and people
There
always
you go.
go, oh. So I'm a real estate agent licensed in the state of California, and I exclusively deal in land. And we'll get into that later, how that all works and stuff. But we help people build what we call generational wealth, and I pay referral fees. So real estate agents that either want to invest themselves or they have investor clients, they can refer those clients to me and still get paid a very decent referral fee for doing that.
And what they're going to learn too is it's not a huge dollar amount for investors to get started if they don't want to. So I think that we'll get into that.
Okay.
Let me ask, how did you get here? What was your journey in real estate?
Well, I was a business coach for decades, almost 40 years. And it turned out that most of the people I coached were real estate agents, few mortgage brokers, but CPAs, but mostly people in the real estate world. I worked for Keller Williams for 6 years as one of their MAPS coaches, Mega Achievement Productivity Systems. So I worked for them for a while.
That's not an easy thing to become, a MAPS coach.
No, in fact, I was a little reluctant to apply because at the time I had not coached a lot of real estate agents. I did not have a real estate license. This would have been back in 2003. I had been coaching people up till then, but a whole eclectic group of people. And the person that was a Keller Williams agent, and she said, no, they need coaches. You're really good at coaching me. I think you'd be great. Okay. And I remember it was 4 interviews over the phone. We didn't do a lot of Zooming back then before they finally invited me to Austin, Texas, where the headquarters is. And I thought, okay, I'm in. And I'm just going to meet some people and sign some paperwork. So I went and I had another few hours of meeting people. And finally, after about 4 or 5 hours, they said, okay, we're ready to offer you a position. I said, oh, well, just now? And they said, yeah, there was a chance we weren't going to offer it to you and you'd be on a plane going home. It's like, okay. So I started out in the real estate world doing a lot of work for Keller Williams real estate agents and other agents as well. Started investing in land in 2012. My wife and I now own 12 properties. And in 2018, I actually was enticed to get my real estate. Well, I actually had my real estate license for 2 months for a completely different reason I won't go into. But my land banker who was selling the land to my wife and I encouraged me to move my license over to the company I now work for called Valor Real Estate Services, Inc. and be on her team. So that's kind of how I got into real estate in general and particularly into the real estate salesperson role that I'm in now.
So let's go back to the coaching piece because that's a big chunk of my world, and I strongly believe in coaching. Obviously, that everybody needs it. I have one. That it's just part of being your best, right? Trying to be the best person you can, best business person, best person as all, right?
Absolutely.
So going from a variety of businesses to real estate, are there that many dissimilar things, or is it all fundamentally the same?
I don't know if I'd say all fundamentally the same, but close. What I was best at, where I excelled as a coach, was helping people with time. Because the biggest thing that I heard from you, the biggest challenge was, Brad, it's too much on my plate. I got too many things pulling me. I don't know where to go. Should I work with buyers? Should I work with both? What about vacations? I haven't taken my family on a vacation. And they were like all over the place. And so there were 3 things that I did for my clients. Number 1, they had to have goals, written goals, what they want. How many houses will I sell at an average sale price of such and so in the next year? So they had to have goals and they had to be in the SMART formula and a bunch of other things. Then I said, okay, great. We're very clear. You're going to list at least 15 homes, close 12 in 2025. Fantastic. And they're all going to be $1 million or more. And your gross commission will be X and your net commission will be Y. Fantastic. Number 2, what's your plan of action? Who will do what by when? If it's just you, you're the who, the what, the when, you're it. If you have a team, what are you delegating? What are they going to do? What are their responsibilities? Have you shared the goals with them yet? So they had to have a POA, a plan of action, written as well.
Just to jump in on that, the who, what, way, that's my consulting company is the 4W strategy, and that's the who, what, way, when. It's you
Yes,
got to know it,
like
and
you
you can't
said,
ignore it.
fundamentally the same. So, you have your style of coaching, I have mine, but it's very closely related. That was what they needed. So after they got the plan of action, the third missing piece was planning a week at a time. Almost every person that I worked with, and it's been hundreds in the course of my career, they kind of woke up Monday morning. They looked at a piece of paper, maybe, or maybe well, back in the day, there were no phones, there were no iPhones, none of that stuff. They would just sort of like, okay, what am I going to do? Oh, I'll make some phone calls. And they'd do that for a while. And then their phone would ring and I got to go show a house, and ran out the door and forget half the things that they needed to bring with them because they weren't prepared for that. I taught them what I call the 5-step planning process for goal accomplishment. Because if you want to accomplish the goals that you wrote down within the plan of action that you have, you got to map that out. What are you going to do Monday from 9 to 10 and from 10 to 11, et cetera, et cetera. So they would map out their week. I would teach them, don't expect the week to go 100% of the way that you want it, because you're on other people's lists and they want you to do things which are going to interfere with what you want to do. So let's shoot for 80%. That was my goal for all my clients. If they could get 80% done, what they said on Sunday they want to accomplish over the next 7 days, that'd be a fantastic week. And that was what I was good at coaching them, was to get to 80% or above. And if they hit 100%, then their goals weren't stretchable. They weren't far enough out. It was too easy if they were doing 100%. So then I would just say, hey, you're going to knock on 50 doors. I want you to knock on 100. Oh, how am I going to do that? Okay, we'll figure it out.
Good. That's
100.
awesome. That's a great plan.
Yeah.
So,
So that was it as far as the coaching.
on the going from generic businesses or very specific, a variety of businesses, and then getting into the real estate, is there a significant difference in the profile of agents versus the other professionals that you're working with?
Yes. What I found was that real estate agents, above and beyond any other profession that I coached, they were attached to their phones. If it was a client calling, they dropped everything else that they were doing. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it wasn't. They had to set some boundaries around the client from hell,
Yeah.
But basically they were the most time challenged people because it's pretty much 24/7. They work weekends. They work nights, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. They still might be doing paperwork or sending out. They get up early. They were not taking vacations. That was one thing I got very clear with my real estate agent. They said, when was the last time you took a vacation? Some couldn't even remember. It was that far. A couple of them said 4 or 5 years. I said, okay, pull out your calendar. Go get your wife if you need to, or your partner, or whoever you're connected. And I want you to block into your calendar now a 7-day vacation that you and your whole family are going to take. And I'm not going to say another word until you go do that. Okay,
some
coach.
agents use that it's like a point of pride. I haven't taken any time off. I'm so busy.
Yeah, the airline analogy with the oxygen mask. If you're not taking in oxygen, you're going to faint before you can help your kids. Put yours on first. Let your kids faint. They'll come back. Don't worry. You'll get to them. But they were not taking care. They weren't enjoying the fruits of their labor. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And I just forced them to do that. And then, of course, they would tell me after they came back from the vacation, OMG, Brad, we've already scheduled the next one. I said, great. How far away is that one? Oh, it's next year. I said, great. What are you going to do in 6 months? Because I was always pushy. Yeah. I said, look, you're making a lot of money. A lot of them were 6-figure earners, but they weren't very wise with how they were spending their money or saving or even investing. Real estate agents, I found, were the worst investors. They're the ones that know which real estate deals are the best ones out there. And they were passing those on to everybody else and not taking advantage of it themselves. And I was like, oh, yeah, you could have had a V8, slam my head. Right. So I had to teach them how to become investors and think about themselves a little bit more, because they're so other focused, which is okay. It's a great thing to be other focused, but at the detriment to yourself, you're going to burn out. You're going to have an illness. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be too tired. Something bad is going to happen. And whenever I told somebody that, oh, no, don't worry about me. Sure enough, by the next phone call, something bad had happened. And I had to really restrain myself from, I told you so. Don't say it. I know you want to say, I told you so. Well, I was thinking about it.
Yeah, that's where silent can really get the message across, right?
That's right.
Let them hear themselves.
Yes.
So what led you to move out of coaching. From what I remember in our first conversation, you're not coaching at this point at all, correct?
That is correct. A short story. So January 31st, 2018, I come home from a real estate meeting. My wife is sitting at the kitchen table. She works at home, or at that time, she worked at home for Oracle. And usually she was in her office. Unusual to see her in the kitchen at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I really knew something was up. Said, I've been dismissed. I said, fired? No. Laid off? Let go? And sacked? I couldn't think of the word. She said, no, Oracle created, and I don't care if Oracle people hear this or not. Oracle created a category called dismissed that allowed Oracle to not have to pay my wife and the other 4 people in her department who were all very much older. So we know why they were all let go. Oh yeah, but we couldn't fight it because Oracle's got too much money, and it allowed them to avoid paying unemployment.
Wow.
So my wife is now done with her job, 15 years. She got her 2-week severance. She got her back vacation pay that was owed, had to turn in her badge and her laptop the next day. And she said, Brad, I'm not working anymore. I'm 67. No, she was 66 at the time. And she said, that's it. We're going to live on your coach salary. I said, well, okay, we may have to tighten up a little bit because she was making very good money. I said, well, let's go out for dinner with Rick and Marcella. Marcella was our land banker. She's also a very good friend of mine. Rick, I had known, he was a coaching client in the 1990s. And we were at their wedding and all that. And we had planned dinner with them from 2 weeks earlier. So I said, let's tell them our story. And of course, they'll be very, commiserative and whatever. We get to the restaurant, we tell them the story, and the 2 of them start laughing at us. And I'm like, what the F? What? And Marie and I are like, didn't you guys just hear what we said? The job is gone. She's dismissed, And Marcella goes, Brad, 2 weeks ago, we planned tonight's dinner. I said, yeah. She said, there was a moratorium on Valor hiring new real estate agents. I said, yeah, I know that. She said, the moratorium was lifted last week. We can now hire more agents. We'd like you to join our team as the first person on our team. One door had closed, one door had opened, but I didn't say yes, Joe. I grilled them for 2 hours. Well, what's it like working there? And what do I have to do? And I've never sold land before. I've never sold any real estate. Yeah, I got my license in November, and this was January of 2018. So I'd only had my license for 2 months. I was with the EX to be a coach with them, but I had to have my real estate license. So she says, no, we want you to move your license. And so we're driving home 2.5 hours later, and my wife is like beside her. She's apoplectic almost. She says, Brad, I don't understand. One door closed, one door open. You love selling, you love dirt. I mean, we got all these properties and you talk about it all the time to everybody. You're what's called a finder, which we're going to talk about later. And you're referring all this business to Marcella. Now you can keep all that business yourself and make a lot of money. I said, Marie, they're asking me to leave literally, it was 40 years, 1978 to 2018. I said, a 40-year career, and all I've done is coach and train and speak. I was also on stages doing training internationally for a bunch of different companies. Leans over in the car, gets right up next to my right ear while I'm driving, and I look like, and she goes, Brad, you'd be an idiot not to accept this new career opportunity. And I did not marry an idiot. And I laughed so hard when she said it, I almost drove off the road. I was hysterical. I was like, oh my God. So I said, you're right. I would be an idiot, and I'm not. I will take the new career. February 1st, I woke up, first call I made in the morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock. I called Marcella. I said, I'm in. Tell me what I need to do. I had to finish up the contracts with my current clients. And when the last one was done, that was it. No more coach. I had one client that I kept. He wouldn't let me fire him. So I kept him for several more years. And I've had one other coaching client for 4 months, not even a real estate agent, but she's in the real estate world, property management and that kind of stuff. We had a 6-month contract, but at the end of 4 months, she just said, I think we're done. I said, yeah, I thought that on the last call.
Looking back at 2000, I'm just curious, like your viewpoint of what coaching was in 2018 and what the market is now and what people are professing as coaching. And if there is a difference, what was and what is?
That's a great question. I'm a little bit out of that world now, but from what I can see, I still am in touch with a lot of my realtor friends. Occasionally I'll go to some meetings. I was on a bunch of committees for years. I was the affiliate of the year of 2014 with the Bay East Association of Realtors. So I've stayed in contact with a lot of them. It's definitely gone more digital, more of this, more Zooming, more email marketing. My daughter actually does email marketing and search engine optimization. website design. The websites are completely different than they used to be.
Sure.
The Department of Real Estate has a lot to say about that as well. But I'm finding that a lot of the agents now, you're tethered to your phone, so you got to know how to do everything on the phone. You need to respond instantaneously to texts. I've heard people say, "Yeah, the person texted me. I got back to him in an hour, and they'd already picked the realtor."
Yeah,
Couldn't wait an hour to hear. I mean, it seems it's like I want it yesterday. It's not even I want it now. It's like it's already too late. So that's the biggest difference that I've noticed is just much more tech savvy, much more phone savvy, much more email marketing, videos or, TikTok and all. I've never seen a TikTok. I don't even do, I'm 74. I am from another generation. I barely know how to use my cell phone. In fact, I didn't know how to text except by hunting, pecking and with one finger. I couldn't do the fun. My daughter would, how do you do that? Finally, Rick and Marcella were actually at my house playing cash flow, quick aside. And Rick stops for a second. Somebody else was rolling the dice. He goes to his phone and he says, yeah, yeah. And then he hits the button. I said, what the hell did you just do? He said, oh, I just sent a text. I said, I didn't see you doing anything with the thumbs. He says, no, Brad, there's this little microphone. Let me show. And he showed me how to record with the microphone a text message. So now I can text. Okay. So my daughter calls me technologically challenged. I can text now. Right. But yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say is you got to be very, very savvy. Your LinkedIn profile needs to look great. Your Facebook pages, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, FaceTime, all that stuff that I don't do and couldn't really coach anybody on. That's all changed. What has stayed the same though is the time piece. I still find people, I call it activity management because there's no such thing as time management. If I said, Joe, here's 20 minutes. I want you to manage 20 minutes. You would look at how do I manage 20 minutes? No, what you manage are the promises and commitments that people make to do something in a time frame. That's what you coach people on. They say, I will knock on 50 doors by Saturday at 4:00. That's an activity in time that you can manage and coach them on. So I call it activity management. That has still, and I believe always will be there. So if you're listening, if you're a real estate agent and your coach, whoever your coach is, if it's not Joe, if it's someone else, if it is Joe, get on their case if they're not helping you manage your activities on a weekly basis by mapping out, what you're going to do, because they're doing you a big disservice. And that's an opinion. I can't prove it. It's not a fact. I treat it like a fact. I believe it's true, but
there
that
might be
stayed
one
the
or
same.
two books written on that. I think you're onto something pretty solid. There are a couple, 2 or 3 books out there that are written on
Just a few.
All right, so let's get into this new gig. You got your license, and could you repeat the name of the company and spell it out?
It's Velour, VELUR, Velour Real Estate Services, Inc. They're located in Southern California in Woodland Hills, and they've been around for 45 years. The son is now running the company that the father founded, and he's actually teaching his daughter how to run it. And we believe, eventually she'll take over. So it's been in the family for all these years. And all they do is what we call land banking. That's it. No apartment buildings, no REITs. We sell dirt. We sell vacant dirt. Our clients and investors, we call them clients, our investors, they buy and hold. We tell them 7 to 10 years on average is the hold period. So this is not get rich quick, which is another thing everybody remembers that they want it yesterday. This is not for those people. This is buy and hold, set it and forget it, do nothing real estate except pay your property taxes once a year, which are very low because it's vacant land. So it's not assessed at a high value. And then you wait for a developer to knock on your door and say, we need your land. It's in the path of growth of this area that we're building 1,000-acre solar, 1,000-acre solar farm or 100-acre shopping center or 500 homes. And you own a piece of land right in the area that we're trying to build. And you can stop the whole project because they can't have an empty space. They can't have a 2-acre or 5-acre parcel empty in the middle of this. It just isn't good for sales. It doesn't pencil out financially. So now you're in the driver's seat. And then we offer free negotiation coaching to help our investors get the returns that we say they should get. We believe 3 to 7x is very appropriate.
Okay. So
that was a lot.
Yeah, it is. And it's such a specific offering. And that was the thing that really gets me in a couple ways. So it's got to be a finite opportunity, is it not? Where you gotta at some point run out of land.
Invest in land because they're not making any more of it.
That's
That's
right.
one of our taglines. The best investment on earth is earth. Yes, we will run out of land where we're investing. In fact, I don't know, for people that are watching this on YouTube, they can see this map behind me. This is a map of California. This is the Pacific Ocean down here. And this, where my finger's pointing, is downtown LA. We sell land within a 60-mile radius of downtown LA. Whole bunch of reasons why. I won't go into this unless we have time. And there's other ways people can find out about it. But we're now about 65 miles. We've actually had to expand, particularly in the north. We're outside of LA County and we're in southern Kern County. Used to be everything was in pretty much LA County. A little bit of Palm Springs. We've done a little bit in Cathedral City and Palm Springs, but it's less than 5% of all of our business. The vast majority is within the 60 miles. And now we've kind of had to go outside that to find land cheap enough, inexpensive enough to offer it to our investors at a good price because we're buying it first. The lord buys the land first with its own money. And then we sell it to the investors. We make a little bit money on the markup. That's how we run the company and how the owner makes a profit. But the investor is the one with the patience. Most of my clients use IRAs and Roth IRAs and 401ks, retirement money. They can't touch it. If they're in their 40s, they can't touch it for 20 years. So they might as well do something with it instead of earning, a 0.5% or 1% in the money market. So they'll take a little portion of their retirement fund, invest in land, and then they just leave it. And then they wait. And eventually they'll get, well, I can't speak like it's a done deal. Our goal is that eventually, because of the growth that we're seeing in this particular area, they will get the knock on the door.
Okay. So what is, right? Let's talk about the entry level, getting into this dollar wise. What kind of money are we talking about for somebody to get involved with this?
Minimum investment is $25,000. I can deal with people up to about 2 million. Most of my clients are in the 60, 70, 80,000 range. I had one person buy $750,000 property, but if they're that big, usually the CEO gets involved and I kind of take a little bit more. I become like the junior partner and step back and I bring in the big guns. But most of my clients, I would say 60, 80, 100, 150, somewhere around there. But you can start as low as $25,000 and up to 4 non-family members and up to 8 family members can invest together. Now on 25,000, we usually don't like 4 people because it's a lot of paperwork and each one is coming up with $6,250. That's a lot. So we tend to discourage that. But say on a $200,000 property, that'd be 50 grand for 4 people. And so sometimes somebody will call me and they'll go, Brad, I only have 100. It's 200. What do I do? Well, sometimes Marcella can find 250s. Or I'll find 250s and we'll pull them together. My first investment, I went in with people I didn't even know. I didn't have enough money. Marcella called me with an incredible opportunity. She said that she was letting me in on this. Normally I couldn't because I wasn't an investor yet. It was something only her investors. But she said, I want you to get your feet wet. It's $115,000, 1.25 acre parcel. It's zone mixed use, which is the highest level of land zoning possible. So I knew it was a great property. I said, I don't have 115. She said, well, how much have you got? I said, I got X. I wound up getting 17% of that property. We had another person at 17%, somebody at 22 and 44. And I think that adds up to 100% if I'm not mistaken. And eventually, and so we'll split the proceeds that way.
Yeah.
So all kinds of different ways that you can get in.
That's cool.
But 25, I think 25 grand is as the minimum.
And the deed, you're getting marketable deed and title.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
we pay for the title insurance and natural hazard disclosure report. In addition to your 25,000 or whatever amount, there's an escrow fee. We have our own in-house escrow department. So we take care of all that. So it's again, a much less fee than if you had to bring, like regular agent will have their favorite escrow company come in and do it. We have the escrow company. So we charge an escrow fee and the 25 grand and that's it. There's no other fees. Unless, if you choose to overnight or, wire fees, you got that. That's common to any investment.
Now with the 4 people that went in on this property, or when you have multiples into one property, are they creating an entity or are they on there individually?
Typically, they're co-tenants, I believe it's called.
Okay.
And they each, and it will say as co-tenants with such and such, so my thing says equity trust company FBO, which is for the benefit of Bradley K. Warren Roth IRA,
Okay.
has
So,
a 17%. I'll have to look at the official title, but we make sure we do it right, because you got to have it.
right.
So when you deal, and so the IRA company has to take it out of, title it back to Bradley Warren, individual person, as do the other three people. Once we've done that, then we can sell that land to, in this case, it would probably be somebody building a shopping center is what we're hoping for.
Let's talk about the process of taking it out of a 401k or an IRA. How difficult is that for a novice individual to be able to pull that off?
It seems hard in the beginning because there's a lot of paperwork and you got to dot the I's and cross the T's and all that. But it's fairly simple. Every company is different. I personally and my wife, we use Equity Trust Company. We really like them, but you can use whatever one you've got it in. And it depends if it's a regular IRA or a Roth IRA. Hopefully your listeners know the difference. Do they? I'm guessing that they hopefully do. Maybe you've covered this before. I mean, a regular IRA is tax deferred. A Roth IRA is tax free. So whenever possible, you want to have it in your Roth, but you got to pay the tax on the money up front. So some of my clients will take their regular IRA, they'll convert it to a Roth within the boundaries of the law. So that's a CPA question, which I don't answer. So they have to go to their CPA and their financial planner if they have one, and they work this all out. And once they have moved the money, let's say into the Roth, and now they have 50,000 in the Roth, and the Roth company has said, yes, you can now invest. Then they call me. Then we start the process of finding land. Before that, we don't do anything because it could take them 3-4 weeks. And if we find a property and they're not ready to buy it immediately, I have to put it back into inventory and Marcella sells it to somebody else. So there's a bunch of hoops to go through in the beginning, but it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy.
Yeah. Okay.
So we hold their hands. We hold their hand and help them.
If someone were planning or considering doing this, is there some groundwork that they could figure out prior to finding that property and pulling the trigger on it with their IRA?
Not exactly sure. The question says, so is there something that the investor could do?
Yeah. Can they start laying the groundwork on how to work with their IRA?
Oh, absolutely.
So that when the property comes along, it's just boom, let's go.
Yes. And that happens when we go through the process. So generally speaking, let's say somebody from your show gets a hold of me. Okay. They email me. They say, hi, I heard you on the Real Joe show. This land banking thing sounds pretty amazing. What do I need to do next? And I'll say, well, the best thing is let me send you a video presentation or hook you up with Marcella and you'll get to watch her do a presentation, which is a prerequisite to investing or becoming a finder. Finder is a referral partner. So you can't refer business to me and you can't buy land from me until you've seen the full, we call it Land Banking 101 presentation.
Gotcha.
So I let them watch that. Then after they've watched it, then they contact me and they might say, no, I'm not interested. I want to be a finder, or I want to be an investor, or I want to be a finder and an investor. Okay. Depending on their response, then we go to the next step. If it's a finder, we go down this path. If it's investor, it's that path. If it's both, it's kind of a hybrid, and we just take them through the next step. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your goals. Do you realize, oh yeah, it's 7 to 10 years, 25,000, 3x return. I understand all that. How much are property taxes? They may have very specific questions. I'll answer as many as I can. And when they're all done with that, then I'm going to say, so how much what's your range? They say 50 to 75,000. And what are you using? Is it cash? Where's the money coming from? Basically is the question. Oh, it's in my self-directed IRA. I do have a self-directed IRA. Well, is it a regular IRA or a Roth? What's a Roth, Brad? Okay. Go ask your CPA and then call me back.
Right.
I can't give financial advice. So they come back to me a week later. We get on another Zoom. They say, okay, Brad, I understand. And we've transferred all of it. I paid the tax. Uncle Sam took a big hit. It's 20% or 10%, whatever it is. But now it's all there. And yes, my range is still 50 to 75. I've got 150 there after paying the taxes, but I like the concept of the Roth. And I said, great. Okay. And then we keep talking. And when they're finally ready, they've had all their questions answered by me. Then I bring in Marcella. Now I'm like the screener, the gatekeeper. Yeah. Now we do a 3-way conversation. Me, Marcella, and if it's husband and wife, they both need to be there if they're buying it as husband and wife. And they get to grill her because it's all about trust. They're about to give us a huge chunk of money and they've only met us over Zoom. So could this be a deep stake? This could be no, Just kidding. I was just fooling around, folks. But from what I've been reading about AI, they're getting very sophisticated. I read in the American Association of Retired Persons' latest newsletter, they had a whole section on scams.
Yeah.
And these deep fakes, voice and video, are getting incredibly real.
Yes, they are.
And they're fooling people. So anyway, once they've met Marcella and all that's done, then she's going to say, "Do you still want to buy?" Yes. And you understand everything we talked about? Yes. What's your range? 50 to 75,000. Great. And Brad's already told me, but I just need to hear it from you. What are the funds are coming from? Our self-directed Roth IRA at Equity Trust Company. Okay. Do you have a particular kind of land? For that price, we're talking solar, maybe residential. They said, no, just 50 to 75. We don't care what it is. We trust you. We understand that you guys have all this experience. You've explained it all. Get us a property. Then the process starts, which is too long to talk about today. We find them a property. We might already have one in inventory, one that we've already purchased and is sitting there waiting to be sold. And nobody wanted something between 50 and 75 except these people. So we'll pull that one out of inventory, which means no other agent can sell it. I present it to Marcella does a video. She puts together a 30-minute, it's called a property profile, 30-minute video. They have to watch that. And then they still have to say, I want it. And then I start the paperwork and we get going. And it's a 21, from the time we receive their 3% deposit, it's a 21-day close.
Wow. Nice. Two questions. One's probably quicker than the other. When you mentioned property taxes, if it's coming out of a Roth IRA, all that money, all the tax payments have to come out of that IRA, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very important for people to understand. Don't pay with a personal check. You'll screw it all up.
Yeah. So a little longer question. You mentioned that they could have options on what type of land use they want to purchase, whether it's solar, residential, mixed use. What are the variations in that and determining which is which one they want?
Great question. It's driven by price. So you have non-residential agricultural, and where we invest, they don't grow crops. It's the high desert, 2,000 feet elevation. It's cactus,
Okay.
cacti, sagebrush, small stunted trees. Any trees that are there are planted by the developers when they build. So you got non-residential agricultural. You have residential, which are homes. You have light industrial and heavy industrial. You have commercial, like an apartment building or an office building. And then you have mixed use, which could be a whole development with houses and a shopping center and a parking lot and a movie theater and an office building and all that. Here, the price goes up dramatically when you're switching from one category to another. So if they say 50 to 75, most likely that'll be solar. 80 to 100, you're starting to possibly get into some residential. Industrial is maybe 150 net. Commercial, we don't even hardly ever get those. You're talking $250,000 or more maybe. And mixed use is 300,000. When I bought mine, we're talking 12 years ago, 2012 and 13 years ago, it was 115,000 for 1.25 acres. That's gone up dramatically. We don't even get mixed use anymore. We don't even have any.
Gotcha. So the one that you're mentioning, you've been holding on that for 12 years so far?
This March was 13 years.
13 years. And as far as what's the landscape look like in that area as far as activity goes?
Glad you asked, because people always say, Brad, you said 7 to 10. I said, on average, the lady that I sold a $750,000 property to, she sold it for $2 million, which isn't 3X, partly because she didn't take our coaching. I want to strangle her, but she got $2 million in less than 5 years.
Nice.
Marcella had a client, 150,000, 10-acre parcel. It was solar. And in less than 2 years, sold it for $1.5 million.
Oh.
So yeah,
nice.
10X. That was 10 bagger. We liked that one. She liked that one. We didn't get anything. I mean, hopefully she'll reinvest some. But that's some examples on the shorter side. Okay. 13 years. Brad, aren't you concerned? Well, when I went down there and looked at the property the first time and stood on it, I kind of looked around and there wasn't a whole lot there. I said, okay, I can wait. Over the years, I've gone down to this area, and it's called the Antelope Valley, where Lancaster and Palmdale are. I've gone onto the property using GPS, and I've watched development creeping in from all four sides.
Nice.
So no, I have not had an offer, but I know somebody very close, less than a half a mile away from me, who's been offered. I believe he had a 2.5 acre parcel, which is twice my size, but he was offered $1 million. So cut that in half. That's 500,000 on our 115. So I know it's worth at least 5x. Another property half a mile away, a company called BYD. It's Build Your Dreams. It's a Chinese electric car manufacturer. They were courted by the mayor of Lancaster. He flew to China on his own money several times and convinced them to open their only North American electric bus manufacturing facility in Lancaster. When I went down there and looked at it the first time, it was a small little building, maybe an acre, maybe a couple acres, probably 2, 3, 4 acres, 90 people, and they were making about 15 buses a year, something like that. I forget the numbers because it's been a while. Sure. They then expanded. That building is now on several acres. They have 1,000 employees, and they're building hundreds of electric buses per year. By the way, just in case you didn't know, the city of Los Angeles has decreed that all of their buses will be electric. And I forget the year. It's either 2030 or 2035. And guess who they're hiring? So BYD, the Chinese company, just bought to the west. So to the east of us is their building a half a mile away. To the west of us, they bought 160-acre parcel. A section is a mile by a mile, and it's 640 acres. So a half a mile by a half a mile, which is a quarter square mile, is 160 acres. That's a big piece of property. They've purchased that, and they are building a second electric bus manufacturing facility, housing at least 1,000 more workers. So am I particularly concerned? If it's another 7 years and it goes to 20, but I make $1 million on 115, okay. So I waited 20 years, but I got a 10x return, and all I paid was property taxes, and I didn't have to do diddly squat. Once a year, I get my tax bill from Los Angeles County Tax Assessor. I pay it through my Roth. All of our properties go through the IRA company. They send the check on our behalf, and then I don't think about it for another year.
And as all the land around you gets gobbled up, yours gets more and more expensive. Good thing.
Simple supply and demand.
Yeah.
Simple supply and demand. Every time there's a sale, every time a new project takes away 100 acres, every time solar company comes in and does 1,000-acre they're big projects. They're huge. And you can see them from Google. You go on Google. By the way, if you go on Google and go to the Antelope Valley and you see all these black squares, Google, I'm told, is something like 3 to 5 years behind in its photos. So even though you're going to see a bunch of black squares, it's nothing to what's actually on the ground. If you go down to Lancaster and drive around, they're everywhere. And that's why we're expanding in, as I mentioned earlier, into southern Kern County, because the land in LA County is starting to be too expensive because there's less of it. But they're still building these gigantic solar farms because the sun, it's the highest UV radiation in the United States, that entire area. It goes into Nevada a little bit and Death Valley, where it's 120 or 130 in the summer. It's sun like over 300 and something days a year. So they're building solar farms like crazy, and that's driven by state law. Most people don't know that in the state of California, all the electricity for homes and buildings, I'm not talking about electric vehicles, which is ridiculous in California. The consumption of a car that needs to be charged overnight or even with the supercharger, we're not even talking. Homes and buildings have to get all of their electricity from renewables by 2035. That's 10 years from now. We're at about 35%.
Wow.
So we have to do twice more what we've done over the last 25, took us 25 years to get here, by the way.
Yeah.
So now in 10 years, we've got to do what it took 25 years to do once. We have to do twice.
Wow.
Otherwise, the energy companies are going to be fined by the state for not hitting that goal. California just passed another law. No more. You can't buy a gas-powered car in California after, I think it's 2030. I have to go. It changes so much, I forget. It's either 2030 or 2035. You will not be able to buy a new gas-powered car in the entire state of California. It must be an electric vehicle. And that is driving the demand for electricity through the effing roof, the freaking roof. Yeah. And we love it because they want to build the solar farms. And what do we got? We got land.
That's a beautiful thing. All right. So we know, and we know the how, we know the what. When somebody wants to call you, what are they got to do? Get in touch.
Best way is email. I don't, because my phone sometimes will say unknown caller and I just don't even answer. So my email is very simple. It's my name, Brad, BRAD, at bradwarren.com. BRADWARREN, Brad at bradwarren.com. I respond to all emails, even when I'm on vacation, within 24 hours, and that will start the process. I may just send you the link to Marcella so that you can see the presentation. I may want to do a Zoom and interview you a little more first, because maybe I've looked you up on Facebook and I've looked you up on LinkedIn, and you don't look like a very patient person. I've read
Right.
some of your posts. You seem to be a person in a hurry.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got 10 minutes to be with your daughter because you're so busy doing this, you don't have 7 to 10 years. I may not want to work with you. So I screen people a little bit and decide what the first contact will be. But that's it. Brad at bradwarren.com. Get a hold of me. Always say where you heard about me. I heard you on the Real Joe show. You don't have to tell me the date. I'll have the date. That's fine. Then at least I can connect you, and that will lead me into, if it's okay to talk about referrals.
Yeah. No, everybody should know that.
So what will happen, and I'm going to be completely transparent about this. Joe knows this. You're going to know it as listeners. I pay a 2% referral fee. We call it a finder's fee. You're a 1099 independent contractor. So you're going to get that. If I pay you more than $600 in a year, in a calendar year, you'll get something from my CPA and it'll go to Uncle Sam. So you have to decide to report it. I don't have anything to say about that. Yeah, but it's reportable as income. I deduct it as an expense. So we call it a marketing consultation fee.
Yep.
And so it's 2% of the gross sales price. So if you, let's say you're a real estate agent, you're listening in, you call me, you become an investor, guess what? I will be paying Joe. He's going to be upfront about this with you anyway, so might as well know now. He's going to make money on the referral. He doesn't have to refer you. Just if you listen to the show and you got a hold of me, he's the referring person. I want to pay him because he's a nice guy and he sent you to me and I never would have met you. Now, if you as a real estate agent, you become a finder. Let's say you don't want to invest or you don't have the money and you're not ready to do it, but you've got lots of investors. You've got rich friends. You got people with 25K. You're going to get 2%. Joe's still going to get 1% because he introduced me to you and you introduced me to them. I'm going to pay both of you, but that's it. If they become a finder, you'll get 1, they'll get 2, Joe gets 0. I only go 2 levels, but that's the structure of the referral process.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's on every sale. So if you buy 3 properties, Joe's getting paid 3 times.
Beautiful thing.
I don't say, oh, he referred, you're my client now, he can go take a hike. No, it's forever. I have one guy put me on a podcast in 2021. I've closed 22 deals from him over the last 4 years. He's made over $50,000 in referral fees. And
Nice.
all he did was put me on the show. He did not do anything after that. Put me on the show, and one couple bought 10 themselves. So half the deals came from just one of his referrals, but most of the others bought at least 2 properties. So yeah, you can do very well investing. You can also do well becoming a finder.
Yeah, I love the concept, buy and hold. I know it's not for everybody, like you were saying. One of the things that I've interviewed, I know a couple of people that are using life insurance money in the same way that you're talking about 401k. Is that similar? They can use that money for a long-term hold?
I think we have a list of 10 different ways you can buy cash. You can team with other people. You can 401k, IRAs, HELOCs. We don't like that because you're paying interest on the money that you've borrowed. Right. So you're increasing your total investment price, making your return on investment lower. You can borrow from a life insurance policy. Now, in that case, it's not as bad, even though you're supposed to pay yourself. You pay yourself back with interest. So it all goes back to you anyway. That's not quite as bad. Most of my 1031 exchange. So I would say most of my clients use retirement funds. Second most, it's just outright cash. And third is 1031 exchange.
Oh, that's great. Brad, we're having signal troubles. I don't know if it's on my end or yours, but we're going to end it here.
Okay.
But thank you so much. It's been subscribe. Check out Brad's information down below. Please comment. See you next time. Be blessed and have fun.
Bye-bye.